Hi, Professor Tizzard.
Hi.
Thank you for joining.
Yes.
So for everyone, my name is Ines. I'm a PhD student in the GSIS. And here we have one of our 선배님. So maybe you could share some of your experience.
Happy to help. It's great to see you. 만나서 반갑습니다. Yeah, good to be here. How can I help, Ines?
Maybe you can tell us how it was to do your PhD, to write your thesis, and what was your thesis about?
It was horrible.
Oh, really?
Writing a PhD. No, I'm joking. Writing a PhD is one of the hardest things that you'll ever do in your life. And I saw so many people go through this process, and it's really interesting the bond and the togetherness that you create by doing that, because people gain weight, they go through breakdowns, they question themselves, they have imposter syndrome. All of these things are a huge reality of doing a PhD or a master's degree. And so having gone through all of that and come out the other side with hopefully not too many mental problems, I'm so thankful to have done it here at Hanyang GSIS, because not only of the environment, not only of the people, but because of the part of the history that I was stepping into, the lineage now that we see between you and I, the stories that we can share with each other, the community that has been fostered through it all. It's really had a remarkable effect on my life, one that I find still quite difficult to quantify, because it still feels new. It still feels like I'm living it. So I was here doing my PhD in Korean studies. The research was fantastic. The freedom, the challenges, the questions, the discussions that we were given every week. The students that I was around, my colleagues, when we were studying, was so beautiful, because it made me realize just how small my world was before I started. This wasn't just coming here and learning about Korea, but it was learning also about how other people see the world, how Chinese people see the world, how Spanish and East European people see the world, how English wasn't the only language that people speak, nor Korean. And I can say with no hesitation that this program made my world bigger.
What put you through it? Like, what motivated you to go on, especially when you had, like, you were struggling, you were doubting yourself. So what was the few things that made you go through and finish your thesis?
That's a really good question, especially someone that's just about to write their thesis. You need this, but that's where you need the community. That's why it's so important. And by the way, that difficulty is an important thing, because if it was easy to get a PhD or a master's degree, it wouldn't have as much value. And so what I do like are the standards here at Hanyang University and the programs, in that people do push you. They, in a sense, they ask you to achieve the inconceivable. They want you to do things that you have not even yet thought about, and turn you into something that you are still trying to become. And so I really like that. How did I get through? Through the advice, through the support of many people. One person once said to me as I was writing my PhD thesis, they said, David, there are two types of thesis. There's a perfect one and a finished one. And it's really important that you write a finished one, because if you try to write a perfect one, and of course your standards should be high, you should try to write the best one that you can. But if you try to write a perfect one, you might never get there. You'll have this syndrome where it's just one more week, one more week, one more week. And instead of that, it's always important to write a finished one, because you can then try to make it perfect later. And I think no matter what you write, I'll never forget finishing my PhD thesis and thinking, like, this is world changing. I'm going to change the world with this. And then you read it a few years later and you go like, oh wow, oh wow, I really thought that then. I really wrote like that then. And it's really a part of growth. So I think having that perspective, not just of where you are, but where you're going to in the future and how you'll see things going forward, that was super important. That's how I got through it, through advice and consolation and lots of coffee and other liquids that I threw into my body at various times to get through. But help from people is so important.
And then what was your thesis about?
My thesis was on diplomatic relations between the United Kingdom and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Essentially, Britain and North Korea, the history and their relations.
Okay.
So we established a embassy there from around 2001 onwards. It was put into place. And so for my research, I spoke to and became acquainted with, got to know the ambassadors that lived, the British ambassadors that lived and worked in Pyongyang. I communicated with them, spoke to them on Zoom, emailed them. I looked at the archives and the files all the way leading up to that, through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s.
Archives in Korea or in the UK?
Archives in Korea, and then online from the UK. I was ordering them online as digital packages, but I did my archival research here in Korea. Lots of conversations with the ambassadors and the people from the Foreign Service, and essentially trying to write the story of this, because nobody had written that story yet. And so it was really interesting. I think many young people want to study North Korea. It feels like an enigma inside a puzzle, inside a conundrum, one of those Russian dolls, where if we can just solve this, we'll change the world. And so that's what I wrote on, and it was... I started seeing it everywhere. I'm not sure if you've had this experience, but as I was studying it, it just became my life. I wanted to read every book. I wanted to know every source. I knew all of the theories, all of the ambassadors, the history, the dates, the times. And if you put me on a quiz show with that as my specialist topic, wow, I could get everything. I became so engrossed in it, and I was very thankful for the support, and it felt like I was doing something important with sort of tangible real world things. It wasn't just this theoretical abstract, which is cool, which is good, but I was looking about the history of how nations came together. I was looking at how two cultures so far removed from each other could interact and socialized with each other. And I was looking at how in Pyongyang they were showing Bend It Like Beckham and Harry Potter movies and things like that. I know, unfathomable, but that's what I was doing. And it was really a pleasure to do, I must say.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience about your PhD, your thesis. And what about the after? Because I think especially for foreign students in Korea, I think the after is what is the most challenging as foreigner in Korea, and just as students who graduate, what to do after.
After? There's life after a PhD? No, I thought that was everything. But you're absolutely right. What comes next? And I think it's when you're in the warp and the woof, when you're so caught up with writing this PhD and making it happen, it's very difficult. And then all of a sudden you're thrust out into the wide world. And what's really inspiring that I found so interesting was seeing so many people around me going to different things, going to be heads of departments in international schools, working in tourism departments. It was really empowering to know that the PhD was not sort of the final step, but sometimes in a way it was the first step into the wider world. And since then, I personally have been very fortunate. My PhD was in Korean studies, and now that's what I do. I teach Korean studies. I'm incredibly busy with it. I teach at 2 different universities. Alongside that, I write a weekly column in the national newspaper. I go on Arirang Radio every morning to discuss these issues, and I do a podcast related to Korea. So Korea has essentially become my life. And none of this would have happened were it not for the PhD.
So do you recommend students to be quite proactive in their search for something after, or what do you recommend them to do? Because I guess you had incredible opportunities, but I'm sure you worked hard to get them.
I think everybody, you have to work hard to get anything in this life. Nothing is going to really fall on your plate. I mean, it's the same with love. We stay in our home all day and we're just waiting for someone to knock on our door and sweep us up in their arms. But life is not a K-drama, unfortunately. Some parts are. But it's not only working hard, but it's having the motivation, I think, to push yourself and to say that you can do things. Because unlike undergraduate, unlike high school, there's not always somebody above you telling you what you should do. You're treated as an adult. You're expected to find your own path. You're expected to grow, to make your own decisions, to seek your own failures and do these things. And that can be very suffocating for some people when they realize all of a sudden that the decisions will be made by them and everything that comes with it. And so being proactive actually is kind of hard to get used to at first.
And maybe one last question. So now that you're a professor, and I think many like students who are graduating, their wish is to become professor themselves. So how it is to be a professor, and like what do you recommend students or newly graduates to?
That is very difficult to get anywhere in life, especially if it's something that you really want and it means something to you. However, you have to go for it. Because you get one shot at this existence we have here, and if you have the opportunity to study, if you have the opportunity to come to a world-class research facility like this and meet the people that we have to take it. Yes. We have so many wonderful opportunities, and now we do have them. To then go on to the next step and become a professor, well, that's just the next challenge. There's a wonderful Korean expression, san nomo san, which means over the mountains, there are mountains. Oh, yes. And it means that you go over one obstacle, and then guess what? There's going to be another one. And then, hey, once you become a professor or you get the job you want, there's going to be another obstacle, and there will be another one. But what this does is it steels you for it. It gives you not only this sense of confidence, but this experience where you can become, to a certain extent, anti-fragile, in that these things don't break you as easily. You have a hardened self. And so to become a professor and then to walk into that, which many people want, is a dream. And your hardened self will find it a lot easier because of the experiences here at Hanyang.
And as a professor yourself, not for a future professor, but as a professor, what motivates you? What makes you really enjoy your profession?
The fact that I walk into a room and I know that I have the ability to change the way that people see the world, to make them think something they've never thought before, to have them leave the classroom looking at me going, Professor, I'm more confused than when I entered. To have them perplexed and befuddled and dumbfounded and question themselves and start to explore. And that happens to me every day. And I'm so grateful about it that rather than give people answers all the time, you're able to show them all these doors that they have yet to open, and ask them, which ones do you want to start opening? Which ones do you want to look behind? It can be very easy to find yourself alienated from your work if you find yourself perhaps in an office or doing something and you think, well, what am I really doing? What's the big meaning of this? As a professor, I know the meaning of my job, and the meaning is something that exists beyond me. The meaning exists in this transfer of knowledge and ideas onto the next generation, and becoming part of a lineage that will continue. And so I'm not sure if you know, but I teach 9 lectures this semester.
I heard.
Professors are not meant to teach 9 lectures. I know, they normally teach 1 or 2.
Are you okay, Professor?
How do I look? I look okay,
very
right?
Good.
And I taught 9 last semester, and it's a privilege and an honor. And I would teach 10 or 15 if there were that many hours in a day. And so I'm living my dream. I'm living something that 20-year-old David would look at and go, wow, that's what you do for life? You just walk into a room and talk about stuff with people? It's more difficult than that. Okay. It's more advanced than research and that. But yes, essentially that's what it is. And that's what we do here. We deal with some of the most important ideas and topics and things that are related to this ever-changing world around us. And to be part of that, even just in a small way, to be part of that Korean story, to be part of that world story, is a lot of responsibility. It's very humbling, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
Very, very, very inspiring. And I guess for many PhD students or even master students who are willing to do their PhD. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, and I hope they do it too.